Thank you so much, Meg. And Marissa, I am so excited to be hosting you today and getting to the meat and potatoes of this incredibly impressive career that you've had and bringing some awesome advice to our community who maybe is in a similar situation. So, as Meg said, please, if you have questions for Marissa, start putting them in the chat and we'll get to as many of those as we can throughout the conversation. So, we're going to get into, like I said, your kind of career transitions and what that looked like. But I want to start by just, asking you, is there anything else that Meg did not touch on that you want to share about you or your role? And then we'll kind of dive right in.
Well, Meg did a fabulous job. What a what a wonderful welcome and introduction. I think ultimately, I have an awesome team of folks based globally, and I'm super excited to be the person that gets to lead them as we build great tools and help our business stakeholders solve challenges.
Amazing. And we're going to dive into a lot of that in the next 30 minutes. So, gosh, 30 minutes goes by so fast. So let's start with, like I said, your career transition. So 6 years ago, you were working as a successful nonprofit fundraiser, but you wanted a career shift. And now, as Meg said, you're the head of Salesforce architecture and development at S&P Global. Can you walk us through that journey and how that came to be?
Sure, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I won't sugarcoat it. So I was a fundraiser for about 10 years. I started fundraising because I felt like it was a great opportunity for me to match my natural skill set with helping my community. And I think it's our nonprofit ecosystem fundraising. It's an incredibly valuable career. It does a lot for your local community and then the global community at large. I about 8 or 9 years in, I started to really feel just mental and emotional burnout from that work, and it was most apparent when I would get really anxious opening my emails, or what we lovingly refer to as the Sunday scaries, right? Thinking about the week ahead and getting kind of anxious and stressed out about it. And I started to think about what I needed to do to bring engagement and invigoration back to my career, right? And I don't want to discount anybody that is a fundraiser. It's so needed and it's so wonderful. I just knew I needed to make a change. So I started looking at what I loved about my work and what brought me the most excitement. And as it happened, I had been sort of given a Salesforce instance a couple of times in different roles. In the Salesforce community, we lovingly refer to that as an accidental admin. And I loved it. I loved everything that I got to do in building and creating different workflows and use cases for my end users to make their lives easier, to make things run faster and smoother. And so I started learning and growing from there. When I decided that I really wanted to focus my energy in a career shift, I made a first I made a list of what I wanted out of my career, which I think is really, really important, right? To kind of identifying what are the things that you need so that you can bring your best self to work every day. And then I started making a pretty methodical plan about how I could shift my career in that direction. So I knew I wanted to work in Salesforce, and I knew I really loved project management and seeing the entire life cycle of how, from start and solutioning all the way to implementation and getting feedback from users. And so I started to shift. I figured what I needed to do next was to become a project manager. And so I became a consultant helping nonprofits implement Salesforce and enhance their Salesforce instances. And when I began, I started with, small local nonprofits and really built from there into global enterprise scale nonprofit implementations. And so along the way, I learned, I just soaked up every ounce of knowledge I could. I got a number of certifications when I felt I was ready to take those exams. And then I found this opportunity with S&P. And I joined S&P as a business analyst. I oversaw a project to implement a transformation in our order to cash project process, and then kind of went from there and did a number of enterprise implementations, and just had the opportunity to continue to grow and expand in my career. And here I am now, head of Salesforce architecture and development for S&P.
It's remarkable. And I love that you really got your foot in the door, with a different kind of career path or, career journey, and then worked to probably through that list that you mentioned to get to where you really wanted to be. I think that's so admirable. And I would be remiss if I didn't just ask right off the rip, what exactly is Salesforce architecture and development? What is that role specifically?
Sure. So Salesforce is a CRM database, right? It at S&P, it houses our customer information. We have our internal teams, between sales and marketing and support that are in there, doing everything that they need to do so that we take care of our clients. So when we think about architecture and development, these are the teams that are actually building automations and tools and functionality to help make our end users' lives easier so that they can be better at their job, move through the process faster, et cetera, et cetera.
That's great. And you mentioned some of the transferable skills, which I think are just so key, especially when we're talking about career changing and what that means to go from role to role. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll talk about career changing a little bit in this next question. People are so afraid of career changing, whether they're worried about the drop in title or maybe decrease in pay, and maybe even that, they're unsure if this new opportunity is what they want to do altogether. So there's a lot of, imposter syndrome when it comes to career changing. What would you say to people who are having these feelings and that are concerned about working their way back up?
Sure. Well, I think I always remember a quote where people only change when the pain of the current situation is greater than the pain of the change, right? Change is hard. It's not an easy process, but it's always here, right? Especially in technology, I find things are constantly evolving, and we can even look to the last year and a half, right? Our lives are constantly evolving and changing. So I think the key is to one. If this is a path or a choice that you want to go down, first being positive that that's what you're interested in. Two, there's always going to be some level of working your way or learning, and I think we need to remove that concept of working your way back up, because we should be lifelong learners in our career. If you all of a sudden are an expert at your role and you can kind of just sit back and coast, are you really bringing your best self to work, right? I constantly challenge myself and my team. Are we doing the best that we can? Are there better ways of doing this work? I think it's really important to be on that path of learning. So I would say it's going to be a change, but it also can be an amazing shift in your life. From my personal example, going from being really anxious about work to being incredibly excited every single day to connect with my team, to think about the things that we're doing, to develop strategies and tools that we're building. It's very exciting, and I love every step of the way.
I love that you mentioned Sunday scaries earlier too. I think that's a big determining factor for a lot of people, your scale of Sunday scaries. But I totally agree with that. And that was very much my next question, because there's always going to be something that gets in the way, especially in this last year when we're talking about a global pandemic. And what that means for people's careers and just change in general. So all of the advice you just shared was really beneficial. Thank you. And
Yeah.
Kathy asked a great question in the chat. Kathy, you're reading my mind. That's my next question here as well. What are some of the resources that you've used along the way? And you mentioned certificates. Kathy specifically wants to know what certificates you got to get to where you are.
Sure. So I, as mentioned, I focused in Salesforce, and Salesforce has a great community of users, very enthusiastic community of users. So I spent a lot of time networking there, and that was a great way to learn and to see how other people were doing things, and kind of figure out, where I might be able to match or to improve upon what others have learned. And so I think, most different types of careers or other knowledge areas will have that type of a community. So I highly recommend finding your way to network, finding your group of folks that are like-minded that you can learn from. In Salesforce, they have an entire certification path, all the way up to the highest level would be certified technical architect. Interestingly enough, there are something like 500 certified technical architects, Salesforce architects in the world, of which about a quarter are women. So it's a really underrepresented group. I started with a Salesforce admin certification, which is basically like first line, first level, went and built from there. And now I'm a certified application architect. I'm working on my last certification for certified system architect, which then allows me to sit for the technical architect exam.
Wow, that's amazing. I had no idea there were so many certifications. And
And
what about
plenty.
continuous learning? What about books, websites, podcasts? Was there anything else that inspired you along the way?
Yes. So I'm going to go back way back to Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. That was sort of quintessential in my mind and gave me a lot of courage to make a ton of changes in my career. So I think that's one of those books that you can kind of go back to and remember and think that it's going to be okay, that you can do this. The other thing, there are in the Salesforce ecosystem, there are ton. There's Salesforce Ben, there's Two-Wit podcast, there's Salesforce has its own blogs and podcasts that it puts out. It also has an amazing YouTube channel that goes through a lot of the knowledge and learning for some of the exams. And of course, they have Trailhead, which is a free online platform where you can increase your skills. There's a ton of hands-on activities, which are really great when you're trying to figure out how to make something happen or how to build something. So there's a ton of resources out there for you.
Amazing. I love it. Another question that I think is really interesting and I want to get to is, how do you specifically think that experience in fundraising has helped you be successful in the career that you have today?
Sure. Well, so like anybody that worked at a nonprofit, it wasn't just fundraising. So I had a number of different responsibilities on my plate. A lot of it was marketing and communications. I did which part of that is a website and the Salesforce CRM system, right, or a database, whichever tool they were using. So I had technical oversight of those tools. But I want to go back to the marketing and communications because that was really key for me to build my skill set in being able to talk through interviews and share how my skills align to what folks were looking for whenever I was interviewing for a new position. So I may not, especially with my first project management role, I didn't have a ton of hands-on years of experience in project management. What I did have was years doing fundraising campaigns and multimedia projects. So I could equate project management and the, sort of the phases and the steps of that work to what I had done in fundraising. And so that was really crucial in being able to share and align. Like I understood what my eventual new employer was looking for, and I could do what they needed to do. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Fantastic. And, I would also love to talk a little bit about mentorship and support, because as we all know, that is so key to progressing one's career, not to mention for career changers or shifters. This can be the make or break opportunity for someone in this position. So, did you have a mentor in this process that really helped guide you? And how did you find this mentor?
Sure. So I think I didn't have more of a formal mentorship relationship. I had a lot of folks that embodied characteristics that I wanted to emulate. So they may not have known that they were my mentor, but they were. And so that's, I think, what the key there is allowing yourself the opportunity to have those deeper conversations and ask questions of folks of how did they get to where they are, what have they learned in the process, and just building on those connections so that you're able to kind of take in their knowledge, and then as you continue to grow, connect and continue that relationship.
And starting at S&P as a business analyst, and of course getting to where you are today, it's pretty clear that S&P Global has also provided you with some career support. How do they continue to help you with ongoing education and training experiences throughout your career or even today?
Yeah, S&P has a great program. So first of all, as a team, we're really supportive of anybody that is interested in adding on additional certifications. So we try to have internal learning groups if we can, or share knowledge where we can, so that folks are prepared and ready to tackle those Salesforce certifications, which can be a little daunting for sure. We have an internal learning system that's really awesome, that helps expand our skill sets. We also have great tuition reimbursement policies. So folks are able to, right now, for example, as part of my shift, I'm working on my master's in technology management. So being able to know that I'm supported by my company to continue my education and move forward in my career even more is amazing. So yeah, S&P is great at supporting, really being the best at as you can at your work.
I love that. And that's so important when you're, career changing and looking for something new, to have that support in your future employer. We only have about 9 minutes left of this conversation. I can't believe it. So if anyone has questions, now's the time to ask them. I have a few more pre-submitted ones, but I want to get to as many of your questions as humanly possible. And this next question is really, really great, and one of my favorite ones to ask in an interview. What advice would you give to someone who thinks they're too old for a career change?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Because I think it's something that we constantly face. So first things first, right? Especially for those in technology, things are, like I said, things are constantly changing. We should always be working at getting better at what we do, at how we do things, making sure we're understanding what's the new technology, working to be ahead to solve big business challenges, right? So I would say, career shifts, even at an older age, as long as you're willing to learn and to know that you're not going to walk in as a subject matter expert, I think you're going to be fine. I don't, and this goes back to title changes or dropping down as well. As a hiring manager, or as a person bringing in talent, I don't necessarily look at a given title or how that shift. I look at what are the skills that this person is going to bring to the table, and are they continuing to grow and to learn and to challenge themselves. So I think it's daunting, like any change, but it can still be done as long as you've got your really solid plan and you're able to translate how it's going to work for you.
Love that. Great advice. And, this is a good question too. What do you love most about your current role?
So much, but mostly I love my team. I love our wider team. We have, I have an incredible group of folks that are spread out globally. So people that, in a given day, I wouldn't have an opportunity to connect with or to learn from or to meet. And so I love that I get that exposure to our global team. They're all incredibly brilliant and so willing to think through how we solve problems, right? We kind of all come to the table thinking through, how are we going to do this in the best way possible? So, Meg mentioned, I love brainstorming. I love creative thinking, and they all bring that every day. The second thing I love about my role, which I think is really due to the pandemic, in fact, is how much we've been able to normalize being part of a family. Before it was very, very separate, and now we have a team and a company that's really supportive of folks to know that we're able to, kids are home from school. We've got crazy stuff happening in the world, and we're able to balance both of those priorities and really have that that work-life balance. So being able to lead in that with our team and show everybody that you can do both, it can work, is really amazing as well.
Such a good point. And I want to touch back on the brainstorming bit a little bit, because I think that's wonderful. And, one of those soft skills that I think go a little unnoticed or underappreciated in the interview process. And I'd love to know, what are your top soft skills that you look for, in career changers? And, you mentioned some really good transferable skills at the beginning, but what, in your opinion, are some of your, go-tos or must-haves for people joining your team?
Sure. So I think it's, again, learning, right? You're constantly willing to challenge yourself to expand your skill set. We've got Salesforce as a platform is changing they have 3 product releases a year. So we have to constantly be learning and making sure we're building, following best practices. So I want to see that. It doesn't even have to be in Salesforce. It's, have they learned other like DevOps tools or, agile skill set or lean project management, et cetera, right? So that's very specific to our roles, but even just, how are they expanding themselves in other ways? Because again, that's sort of drive and ambition is you want to learn more and you want to grow more in your career. I think, it's what's interesting about the interview process, even right now, right? You're working on the fly. You don't know what questions somebody's going to ask going in. So I really watch how people try to answer questions and work their way through a story of getting to the point, but also, acknowledging or bringing to light some of their other skills or other knowledge, right? So seeing people that can kind of connect those dots, that's a really key piece. I think, as an interviewee, I've always gone in with trying to show exactly how I'm going to meet my potential employer's needs. So being able to translate that is super, super important. I think I covered your question there.
Oh, yeah, that's a great answer. And before I turn the tables over to you to tell us a little more about S&P, I want to ask one final question, and that's, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think I would have started Salesforce earlier. I started working in that tool earlier. No, I think it's really paying attention to your instinct. Always listening to that. I think I probably could have dealt with burnout or that anxiety sooner if I had given myself a little bit more awareness. And that goes with everything, really. Like if you're not bringing your best self to work, if you're not excited, if you're not engaged in the work that you're doing, if you are not able to kind of walk back and figure out why, and then fix it and continue on with your company or change if the case may be, I think that's super important. You've just got to have that that self-awareness. So kind of getting back to your instincts and to your intuition is really, really crucial. And that's what I would tell myself.
So well said. I love it. And, we're almost at time here, but I want to give you the opportunity to tell everyone how they can connect with you or connect with S&P Global, anything that you'd like to share before we wrap up.
Absolutely. Well, we've got our S&P Global LinkedIn account, which definitely go follow. We've always got great stuff happening. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. Would be happy to connect. We've got some great opportunities, especially on my team. We're building a release services team, so working with a DevOps mindset, which is really exciting, and being able to build out a strategic path for DevOps within our Salesforce team. We've got a number of opportunities both for developers and business analysts as well. So would love to answer any questions or that folks might have about those opportunities.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Marisa. It's been my pleasure to chat with you and learn more about your experience and the amazing work that you're doing right now. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with all of us. We really appreciate it. And just thank you again.
Of course, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Can we have a round of applause for this amazing discussion Marisa and Lauren graced us with?